And so this is both the answer to, potentially it could be an answer to what a good idea is for a brand new thing. It could be also that you have something and you're trying to figure out, how do I extend and create more revenue? But if you think about the solution to any problem, let's say like AI, let's say that AI is the solution to our content generation problem, right? So that's kind of like the prototypical thing that a lot of people use AI for. So I want to create a bunch of content and I can't. So AI comes out and like, great, solves my problem, right? So now the next question is, what's the new problem? Well, the new problem is I got all this AI content and it all sucks. So I want to filter anything AI written out, right? So what product could I build that now checks whether it's AI written? Or what if I actually want my content to be written and pass those checks? Because that's the next step, right? Like now there's checkers out there, but I want to get through that and show that it is human edited at least, right? So now I have to take my AI content and have a tool that goes and humanizes it. Now there's humanizing tools, right? So every time you create a solution to a problem, there's always going to be another problem that shows up. It might be that you're just trying to get people from A to B in a transition and you're just solving one step of their problem. Or it could be that something new came out and creates a new problem that nobody ever had seen coming. But either of those places is a good place to start too. So, but I think there's lots of mental models for this.
You know what I love about that? It kind of neatly solves that distribution problem as well. Like this is in the SaaS world. One of my biggest gripes is that quite often people will say it's everything in one place. It does everything that you need in one place. You see that all the time. And I feel like tearing my hair out sometimes, saying, okay, but if it does everything, then nobody's going to partner with you because you're a competitor, and you now have to support a whole lot of different products and all these features and functionalities, and you're a small team. You don't have deep pockets. If you're bootstrapped, trying to maintain feature parity with a whole bunch of big funded competitors is suicide. But that whole thing about, so instead of trying to compete with Shopify, build an app that makes Shopify better and sell it through the Shopify App Store. That is a way easier business to get off the ground. And Shopify wants to encourage that. They're not going to fight you on it. They're going to push you in front of their customers because you're making their product better. So I love that whole idea. What do you call it? The Barnacle and the Whale?
Yeah, that one's the Barnacle on the Whale. That's one I've seen for a long time. It works really well because you understand your distribution channel. One of the things that I've been working on is actually using AI to go out and evaluate the different platforms that exist. And so, like for instance, let's say that there's a CRM platform, there's Salesforce, and then you have a new CRM platform that comes out, and it's this tiny little thing, but they've got an app store, right? So what would you do with that? Well, you go look at the app store in Salesforce and see of all the extensions and add-ons that they have, which ones are independent. So they're not an integration with, like, say, Microsoft or something. They're independent code, but they're rated really highly. So maybe it's let's say it's a time tracker or something, right? So if it's a time tracker over here, that's the best thing, then go make one for this brand new one that has this rocket trajectory that no one's heard of yet, but it seems to be like it's taking off and everybody in your world is talking about it. Like, you are now the Barnacle on the Whale, charge a couple bucks and you just ride the trajectory. You're not even doing the distribution yourself. They are, right? So it's great because, and all your people are in one place. So who are you going to talk to? If you're doing the Shopify thing, you're talking to Shopify owners. That's it. That's all you care about. Your ICP is just, I own a Shopify store with 1,000 SKUs or something like that. Like, okay, so I'm solving that problem for those people, whatever that might be, SEO or something.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, it neatly packages up a whole bunch of things all at the same time. So
I love that idea. I think that makes so much more sense. So many people go out and they want to build the next Facebook, or they want to tackle this giant problem, but they're bootstrapped and they've got no money. And it's like, okay, maybe start off with a smaller problem, or let someone else do the heavy lifting of, inventing the category, and you just tag along for the ride. I love that. I think that's really smart.
And the other cool part is, like, once they're your customers and you get if you can get their contact information from that process, now you have the potential to, guess what? You've created a new problem, kind of like move into that problem, solution problem sort of place where you're like, you've created this new solution to a problem they had, but now you just think about, like, well, what is the next problem that those people are going to have, right? And you already have their contact information because Spotify gave it to you. Like, you can, it's a nice packaged up way of doing things. You do have platform risk, but honestly, I think everybody effectively has platform risk in some fashion or another.
Absolutely. Just on that, so the interview I did with Lars Lofgren, for anyone watching this, he called Google the Wild West right now because of AI and how Google's attempting to solve that. So SEO used to be the thing that was, would always work no matter what. Even that is under question at the moment because of what's happened. So if you haven't checked out that episode, go and watch. I'll stick a link up here. But Nate, I know on your Substack you mentioned a while back about a metric you call time to aha. What is that?
Yeah, I think it's been called by other names as I've kind of like researched around, but effectively what it is it is a metric that measures how long it takes from a person who, like, let's say that your starting point is a sign up for a free trial or something. It is the time it takes for that person from the moment they signed up to the moment that they actually got it. They understood what you did and that what problem you're solving, and that it works for them. They get it, right? That's kind of like what you're shooting for. Because a lot of times you can look at the page and you're like, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, this might be a solution to my problem. So I sign up for this thing and I walk it through, but really what I'm doing is I'm evaluating, are you really solving my problem? And is it solving it in the way that I want it solved? When that happens, and when I'm like, I get it. Like, this is how this is happening. Then that's the moment where you stop, hit the stopwatch. The faster you can make that process, the better conversion rates you're going to have, the less churn you're going to have. All of these like problems start to get solved, because what that indicates is that your marketing messages, all through, whether that's advertisements or whatever your distribution channel is, all the way to your landing page, which is your promise, to the delivery mechanism, how it's being done, and to the value received at the end of the day, right? So as long as that process, if you can shorten that window up, you're likely to have less churn, have like better leads. All of these kinds of things will come through and be better off because you have shortened that window. It also shows that you understand their problem in a way that maybe others don't. If you have a shorter time to aha where people get it than your competitor, you're going to win that game. Like, it's just natural, right? You can imagine, like, how long does it take me to figure out what this thing does? If it takes 7 days, maybe I've tried a whole bunch of other products in that time period, right? If it takes 1 day or 15 minutes or 2 minutes, I don't even have time to go look at other solutions because you've got me here, right? And I'm like probably so engaged with it that I have no reason to go elsewhere.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think I see this quite a lot with people that are struggling to get people to convert from a free trial into a paying customer, because you look at their onboarding process and it's like, okay, so the first thing you need to do is upload your logo, and you're sitting there thinking like, why? Like, I don't want to upload my bloody logo. I want to solve the problem. And it makes sense if you think about it, because there's like, the person who's built this thought, okay, here are all the logical steps you need to go through in order to end up with a finished product. But that's not the way that humans think, is it? It's the way that we think is, okay, well, I'm just testing this out. I just want to see if this solves my problem. If it solves my problem, then I'll go back and fill in all the blanks. So you're not really starting from step 1, are you? You're sort of starting from like step 3 or 4. And that's where you need to drop people in the onboarding process, just to get them as close as possible to that aha moment.
Yeah, purely just focus on getting them the thing that they wanted, right? Like, if adding my avatar and filling out my last name is going to be helpful in getting what I want out of this product, great, ask it. If it's not, don't ask it, right? Get me to my end result. What is it required? And it doesn't actually even have to be something that I produce. Let's say I wanted, let's say I wanted to use a new project management tool. I don't have to then install, go through and see and put in my actual project and then start managing it to get an idea of what the end solution is and whether this will work for me. The time to aha does not mean I have to do it. It just means that I have to understand it. So if you pre-fill the project management tool with a thing that looks like my project, right? So if I'm a construction worker and you fill it out as a construction worker would, then I could look at it and be like, oh, I get it. Yeah, that's how I organize my stuff too. Or, oh, that's a better way of organizing. I can see how this is going to give me the end result. And I click export or whatever, and I can see that this is then going to solve my problem in the way that I want it solved. Aha, right? It happens. And that's what you want. So it doesn't have to be that I do it, but the point is that you get them to the value as fast as possible, that they understand the value that you're delivering.
Just on that, do you have any other little known hacks or special tactics? This whole channel is about finding very, very nitty gritty, detailed, actionable stuff that you can apply in your business tomorrow. But are there any little known hacks or tactics that you feel like more SaaS founders should know about?
Yeah, I think the one I like the most is one that seems so simple. Like it doesn't really take much to do, but it's really early stage. So if I'm validating a product, if I'm trying to figure out whether this thing is going to work, or maybe I'm validating also like, do I have the right people or the right channel of folks and like that I'm going to draw from for the early stages. I will create a landing page. I'll put the sign up form. I'll do a kind of like the waitlist scenario, right? But what I think most people do is what they're trying to figure out is like they're trying to get people in the door, and then they kind of just leave them there and don't really talk to them until they're ready to launch. And so what they're trying to figure out is like, do they have the right distribution channel? But I think you can take that one step further and actually validate the product itself. So I don't even build until the landing page is done, the waitlist is coming in. But also, I take that one step further where instead of sending them a thanks for signing up email, I actually have already mapped out what is the biggest risk assumption that I have for this business to actually work. So for instance, I had one example that I did. It was like it was going to be kind of like this. It wasn't an extension, but it was an add-on, kind of hacking through like Starlink's website and system. And there was this very particular problem that they had that people who travel had when they were using Starlink in their traveling. And so I heard them all complaining about this particular problem. And so I built a website that basically took all of their words and said, like, don't you hate it when this happens? And, I'm building, such and such. Sign up here if you're interested. So they fill out the email or they're filling in their email. And instead of sending them thanks for signing up and then never talking to them again, I had already determined that one of the assumptions that I had for this business to work was that they would have to be moving probably close to something like once a month for me to make any money off this deal, right? They wouldn't be using the tool unless they would just look at it and say, it's not worth my time or energy. Or they would just use their workarounds that they currently use if they moved less than once a month. So that was kind of just my thought. And so what I did is in my email, I said, thanks for signing up. I'm Nate, being very personable. I'm like you, I travel, I have a Starlink, et cetera, et cetera. I'm building this for you. I've heard the complaints, but like really, shorten this all up, but get to the point and say, I have a, important question. And I would ask them, how often do you move? And just send that out, just because I was like, if somebody comes and signs up on my wait list and they aren't moving once a month, I don't really actually care to even interview them. I don't care what they really have to say because they're not in my ideal customer profile. So, but if they say I'm moving more than once a month, then the great thing about that is I've just established a relationship, and now I can just ask them question after question after question to my ideal customer profile and get answers that I probably would have never even came up with. So I use this as a mechanism to actually start the customer discovery journey and understand what products and what features do I have to build of this product to actually resolve my customers' pain points. Now I'm having a direct communication instead of having that communication in the group, in the Facebook group or the Slack channel or something. Now I'm doing this one-on-one. If it turns out that they say something weird and I'm like, do you mind like getting on a call and talking to me about this? They're like, oh, cool, because you're Nate, because you're building this for me and we talked and like it's all great. And now I can use that as one of the data points for me to build off of. And I haven't even started, or maybe I've kind of started, but it's just the really basic foundation of it. But whatever they say is probably going to be really important for me to make sure that I have in there if they're going to buy it. So I use that as the assumption killer or company killer assumption, and I ask that in the first email. That's my kind of hack for figuring it out.
That's really clever. And I suppose, too, at the same time, you're building a relationship, you're building some rapport with these people so that instead of getting doing the smoke test, getting the email sign up and go, that's validation, and then silence for the next 6 months while you go and build the thing. And then you go and launch it, and you reach out to them and they're like, who are you again? Because you've actually built a relationship. When you reach out, it's like, oh, it's Nate. Cool. Yeah, I remember that guy. He was great. And you're far more likely to get them to actually sign up for the real thing instead of just kind of wasting that effort of getting that email address in the first place. I love that. That's super smart. Well, listen, just a couple of things before we get to the end. I did want to dive into something a little bit more tactical and maybe talking through some of your experiences with some previous businesses. Can you talk me through some of the challenges that you faced in a few of your businesses and how you overcame those challenges?
I think one of the most fun ones that we did was we ran RoomSteals.com, created that company off of the back of an exit that we'd had with a hotel brokerage company. We had this data source. Just
for context, like what was the elevator pitch for RoomSteals? Just for anyone who's never come across that before, what was?
It was discount hotel rooms, effectively. So deeper discounts, and so we called them wholesale prices. But that was kind of a bit of a misnomer. It was an easy way to kind of think about it. It's like Costco for hotels to a certain extent. But the data source was effectively this inventory of discounted hotel rooms that we hadn't ever seen in the public. And I've done travel hacking for ages, like 20 years, right? So for me to even see it, I was surprised by it. And if I was surprised by it, then I know that this didn't exist out there. So I had this idea while working for a company, and I brought it to them and I said, hey, we should do this. And they're like, that'll never work. And I'm like, okay, great. Can I do this? Can you sign? And they're like, yes, fine. So I got that all signed from the executives and the board and all that stuff, and then even through the exit when we got purchased. And so I took that and ran with it and started building up this wholesale hotels platform. And one of the things that we ran into in that was just having a hard time getting adoption. And this goes back to why do I say things about understanding your customer and doing the distribution channels first? Well, this is one example, like where I think this was the last time I ever built anything that I built it thinking, I know this needs to exist, and I didn't really know where my customers were. So we had a problem with adoption, and we had people who, we didn't know where to go get new people. We knew discounted hotel rooms should be a thing, but how do you go get them, right? How do you get people to show up? So we needed trust. And of course, we had the typical sign up like email and password and all that kind of thing. And then we added, I think on a whim one time, a social login for Google. And that seemed to work really well. And people were I think it was 3-to-1 ratio. People were using Google, or maybe 4-to-1 ratio to sign up. And I was like, well, that's cool. And then at the same time, this was when that Chrome extension Honey got purchased by, I think it was PayPal or whoever, for $1 billion or something like that. And if you remember how that worked, it was really just a Chrome extension that just kind of picked up the pricing and would give you an affiliate link to go over and purchase it somewhere else, and they would make money, and then you'd make a little bit of money, and everybody wins. And I thought that was a pretty smooth way to do that. And so what we did is we adapted that idea and built a Chrome extension. And the pitch was that we would just sit in the background. And if you went to one of the 4 biggest websites to purchase hotels, we would wait till you had your dates in there and your specific hotel that you were going to. And then we would flash the price. And we would say, well, here's the wholesale version of that, right? And if you want it, just click the button. So there's a bunch of dynamics here, but the cool part was people were already joining for the benefits of getting the wholesale stuff, but the problem is when you're looking for pricing, you don't want to go to 10 different sites to figure it out, or 5, right? You want to go to one, and you probably have one that you already use, and it's probably one of these big 4. So we just attached ourselves, Barnacle and Whale, right? Attached ourselves to the Chrome browser and to one of these 4 big other sites at the same time. So the only caveat to it was you have to sign up, and this was not actually our rule, this was actually industry rules, but you have to sign up and be a part of our membership and just be a part of it. You don't have to pay us, but if you sign up then and log in through Google, which facilitated more logins and registrations for us. Then when you browse, we'll show you the wholesale price instantly, right? And if it's cheaper, go for it. Buy it from us. And at that point, you have to become a true paid member. But we were kind of like the Costco model. We were like, one price, and then you can just book as much as you want, but it's one price per month. So you pay a membership fee, and then everything else that happens in the transaction is all effectively margin free. Like, we didn't make any money on the transaction. So, but the big kind of like overcome challenge that we had with that adoption rate solved itself when we were like doing the Barnacle and the Whale sort of scenario. And we're like, we're just along for the ride, and we'll show up right at the moment before you purchase. And if we're cheaper, you can buy our membership. And if we're not, no harm, no foul, right? Like, go along your way. So the moment that it becomes cheaper, sometimes those things became really, really cheap. Like $3,000 a night hotels going for $300, and our like $60 or $90 or whatever it was, like annual fee was nothing, right? And they were winning. The moment they sign up, they're winning. And then they get the ability to book more if they want for nothing. So it just solved all of those problems all at once. And then people would go looking for like the booking.com Chrome extension, and they would find us because we attached to booking.com, right?
Right.
So it worked in our favor in a lot of different places for distribution and trust and, all of these kinds of things. The moment of purchase and the bottom of the funnel and all of that kind of stuff all solved itself just by building that Chrome extension that worked like that.
See, I love that. I think that's super creative because like in that space, maybe that's the thing. It's like, why hasn't someone built it? It's like, because distribution is hard. Because when people book hotel rooms, it's going through a Google search and either clicking on an ad or clicking on one of the organic results, and that's the way that most people do it. So you got around all of that by getting people to download the Chrome extension, and then it doesn't matter which page they land on or which ad they click. People are paying through the nose. I think those are some of the most expensive keywords in the world, like hotel in X city here. It's probably some of the most expensive. I know cheap flights, I think, used to be the most expensive keyword in the world. But so people are paying through the nose for those ads, and you're getting that traffic for free because they pay for it and then they get your Chrome extension and they end up booking through you as well. I love that.
And we knew all this. Like, we knew that like certain companies were doing SEO, certain companies were doing paid ads. They're spending billions of dollars to get that traffic. And we're like, but so how are we going to compete with that? Right? Like, it's so hard to compete with anything like that. So if they're the 800-pound gorilla, they're the whale.
Yeah.
Slap ourselves onto it and be like, we don't care, we're agnostic, right? so and we look pretty good because we're not making money off the transaction anymore either. And I think that vibed with people's like mentality of like not getting taken for granted or stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of other industry things that went along in the background as to why that worked. And we eventually, when I was getting on podcasts and talking about it, I was kind of outing the industry, but it did the same kind of thing. It was like, oh well, maybe I'll go to booking.com because that's what I remember. But then you've heard this thing and you're like, I need an extension that tells me that this is a legit, like, good price. Like, this isn't, they're not taking me for a ride. And like, so it worked for trust too. And we were commoditizing trust, just like Airbnb commoditized trust. It's the same kind of idea.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And again, like coming back to what we were talking about before, every time I see a founder saying, oh yeah, I'm going to go and spend some money on Facebook or Google ads. And you're thinking, oh, just get a little bit more creative. Come on, there are so many better ways to get in front of customers. Nate, we are just about out of time, but before we wrap up, so two last questions. First one is, are there any books or resources or tools that you would recommend to other SaaS founders generally?
I have a couple. I think on the lines of understanding your customer, there's a framework called Jobs to be Done that I highly recommend people go through. The book, what's its name, Fitzpatrick, The Mom Test. So that when you're asking people questions, you're doing it without ego. When you're doing a customer interview, there's a resource by, and I'm going to butcher her last name, but Caitlin Bourgeois? I don't know. Sorry, Caitlin. Anyway, called Clarity Calls Worksheet. So I highly recommend that. And it gives you literally a script on how to ask certain questions using kind of the mom test idea. So I would say those three, if you're dealing with ideal customer profile problems, and you want to talk to your customer. And then I think, generally for founders, I think a lot of founders struggle with their time. And I highly recommend Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time. And it's a process that I worked through about 80% of it before that book came out. And then I was like, oh, good, somebody finally documented it. And then I also figured out a little bit of it, additional stuff there too. I think it's well worth it as a founder who struggles with time management and priorities and things like that. It is has good processes, even if it's a bit like even if he throws the whole kitchen sink at you, it's still, you can take some of the little pieces and work it out, and it'll pay back.
Absolutely. I'll put links down the bottom. And Nate, if anyone wants to reach out and get in touch with you, or they want to find out more of your stuff, like where should they go?
So yeah, you just go to nateritter.com. That's one place. I also am running something called Founder Labs. So founderlabs.io, which is transitioning at the moment, but I'm trying to help more startups work through the kind of those ideal customer profile problems, or really their symptoms, the churn and those kind of distribution channels and things like that. So that's what I do, and that's what I like to do. So I wake up every day enjoying it. So that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Nate, thank you so much, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Happy to be here. Thanks.